It's a bit wet, drizzly, murky, dark, and a little chilly, damp in my house today, because that's what it is outside. And I've lit the fire, as you can see, and I'm going to smoke a pipe again. I quite like these pipe smoking videos. There's a number of them on YouTube, I've noticed. It seems to be some sort of club going. Anyway, I think the thing about pipe smoking is, it's, for me anyway, and this may not be the case for many others, it's a very thoughtful, creative process. It does something to the mind and makes you want to cogitate, think about things. And one of the best things, I think, for thinking about things, if you're, say, you're sitting by the fire and being reflective, is also reading books. And I'm surrounded with books. I have a pipe in here I'm going to smoke. I'm just going to put that down there. I had some books come in recently. I'm a bit of a book fiend, and I like farming and old farming stuff. This is a book of memoirs, a memoir rather, by Richard Ingrams about John Stuart Collis, who was a writer who wrote about farming in the old days. And it's a beautiful book. This is Graham Harvey's Grass-Fed Nation, Getting Back to Food That We Deserve. It talks about the importance of grass-fed cattle, things like that. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but we are in a strange place as far as food is concerned. And another book that I'm going to explore in a second is this one by a beautiful writer, Adrian Bell. This is called Apple Acre. We'll talk about that in a second, but I want to show you the pipe. So this was given to me by one of my viewers, Andy, and I'm very privileged to have been given this, because in the 1970s there was a museum, the House of Pipes, in Bramber in West Sussex, near to Bramber Castle. And I think I showed this in the previous video. This is a clay pipe. It's a very beautiful clay pipe, and it has a motif of Bramber Castle on the side. I can't do that because it'll go out of focus, but anyway, this is a clay pipe, and it's got an imprint on here of 1973. And I thought I'd smoke it. I'm going to smoke something called, it's actually in a different tin because I haven't got an appropriate lid for it, something called Guilty Pleasure by Ashton. I believe it's made in Germany or Belgium. I can't remember now without... made in Germany, there we are. So I'm going to prime that, and I'm going to be careful with that pipe because it's clay and it's very delicate and it's not been smoked. So thank you, Andy, I really appreciate that. So I'm going to get from my tin, and this will be, I think, the first clay pipe I've smoked, proper clay pipe all the way through, like this. I may have done one 30 years ago, so we'll see how this goes. Now, I will put a fair amount in there. I did smoke a strange pipe last time. I was later told that was made in Czechoslovakia, I believe. Anyway, I'm going to basically fill that. I was told that in the old days, these clay pipes, because they were so cheap to make, they became pre-packed, which is quite hard to believe, isn't it? In this disposable world that we live in now, when you go back into a world where they respected the longevity of things, that the pipe itself came pre-packed, and you'd smoke it and presumably throw it away, or add whatever tobacco you came in. So it had a sample in there, I suppose. Right, okay, so that is ready. I'm just going to close up my tin, which we pay so much tax on tobacco in this country. It is just obscene, really. And when I've seen some of these Americans who are smoking, and I wonder that their tobacco, because they live in a country that can grow tobacco, it must be a lot cheaper than we have. I have a cup of coffee on the side here to wet my whistle. The fire is very low, just burning quite serenely. So let's give this a light. I don't want to break the pipe. It's unlike the fishtail that you have on other pipes, like this one here, which I think is either vulcanite or acrylic. I think that's vulcanite. You know, it's a flat. It clamps in your mouth nicely and is all very lightweight. These have got a little blob on the end. But you can imagine, and I used to, as a child, go playing on the fields where I used to live in Horsham in West Sussex, and I would stumble across clay pipes, broken ones. And you can imagine the old ploughman ploughing the field, smoking his pipe. Perhaps it breaks, and then he would chuck the bit that's broken away and slowly, slowly edge towards the bowl, which I think is a beautiful idea. So with my pipe lighter, let's see what happens. There are different types of pipes, of course. There's the corn on the cob. That's a kind of a cheap pipe. There's briar, and various other woods now are coming on stream. Meerschaum, of course. Oops, and clay. And I imagine that clay would get quite hot. And in fact, you see pictures, these old paintings, where they're holding it by the stem, because I imagine the bowl gets very hot indeed. I do like this particular blend of tobacco. I can feel the heat in that bowl, so there it is. We get the old temper on it. But I'm quite nervous about breaking it. It's an experience. Look, it's got a little bit there to rest it when you put it on the table. But because you can't really, well, you can at the moment hold it on the bowl, but it is warming up. I have to say, it's pleasant enough. It's pleasant enough. It's a pipe, for goodness sake, but probably I'd stick to a briar or something else. Or my meerschaum. And I'll come back to that in a minute. I'm just going to leave that to cool down for a second. Not that it's too hot, because I just wanted to have a look at this book. Now, this is a book I bought called Apple Acre by Adrian Bell. It's a book about farming in the 1940s. Interestingly, I didn't expect this. I just sent off for the book. And it's this is a gift, a prize. And inside, I don't know how much you can see really, but it's got this burnished cover, and it's got Rock Ferry High School, wherever that is. Inside, this is obviously an award, Birkenhead Education Committee, Rock Ferry High School, Certificate of English, School Certificate of English Prize, awarded to John Ferrymond, 5A, Form 5A. There's a signature by the headmaster, and the school year is 1946 to 1947. Isn't that beautiful? It's lovely to have that little piece of history that somebody somewhere was awarded this. Whether the young man read the book, I don't know. It's found its way into a second-hand shop and then over to me. And I thought I would just pick out one of the little short piece of text and read it to you. This is now Adrian Bell was writing about farming. He did a bit of farming as well in the 30s and 40s. He left farming. He did a lot of writing, and he kept coming back to it. But farming and country affairs was very much his thing. He's very poetic in style. So I'm not going to read a huge chunk, but I just wanted to read a little bit so you get the measure of it, and then finish off with a bit of pipe. So this is called Leaves in the Furrows, and he writes. Adrian Bell writes very leanly. He doesn't put too many words where you don't need too many. Sometimes that makes it difficult to read on first reading, well, certainly for me, but we'll see how we get on. So, Leaves in the Furrows. This is the last harvest, the sugar beet harvest. It's too late for a harvest, really. The potatoes are up and the mangles clamped, the stubbles ploughed. Yet this last crop is ungathered. At least it's a fine start, a crisp wind and sunlight, that makes the farmhouses stand out naive and clear, as in a child's picture. The lifter draws easily through the earth, which is dry and crumbly, and we, who follow, clad in aprons of sacking, knocking the roots together and scattering the earth off them, agree that it might do much worse. Of course, nobody will admit to there being any pleasure in sugar beet lifting, ever. Only under certain conditions is it more supportable than under others. The position is back-breaking, and the grit that flies off the roots impedes conversation. If you open your mouth too wide, it flies in. But conversational it is, of course, like every other field operation. Only when one comes on a beat that the horse-drawn lifter has missed, conversation is interrupted by a grunt and a blast. "I don't mind, as long as the weather's fine," the old Mr. Winch beside me says. "But if it turns wet, I shan't come no more. I'm not forced to do this, you understand." Mr. Winch is proud of his independence, and who wouldn't be, at the age of 73, to be able to retire from farming 70 acres to a neat cottage and live on his means. In actual fact, the whole of his retirement consists of that one phrase, "I'm not forced to do this." To occupy in the evening of life a theoretical easy chair is the proof of his success as a farmer. So he is keen to remind you of it, though actually he's working as hard as any of us in the field. I don't quite know why he comes to work. Is it to oblige his former neighbour, Mr. Cam, on whose field he's working, or is it to be in sight of his old farm still? Those fields which contain his life fascinate him. And he is followed out there each day by his white cat, who also has a strong homing instinct. Every morning, "Here comes Dick Whittington," says one of Mr. Cam's young labourers as the pair arrive. The cat sits under the shelter of a beet plant most of the day, with an occasional prowl around. I just think it's very, very beautiful, and I love that sort of prose, and I love that evocative nature that writing brings of the old days, a slower pace than this fast-paced world that we live in. And that to me is why the pipe goes with reading. Obviously reading aloud is not so good with the pipe. Reading quietly with a book in your arms by the fireside, I think that's sort of dying a little bit, but not to worry, and a good piece of tobacco. And that to me is what pipe smoking does. It cools and calms you down, slows you down in this fast-paced world. My problem is I've only got one eye. You may not realise that, but this eye is actually a fake eye. So distance is quite tricky about lining up the flame with the bowl, and it helps if the flame actually goes in the bowl. But there we are. Clay pipe. It's very nice, thank you very much. Albeit a bit gritty in the teeth. But I'm glad I tried it. I dare say I won't smoke it again. But I ought to finish that bowl of tobacco. It's too expensive to waste. Thank you so much for watching.